Good morning, everyone. Jim here, Laird here from Largo, Florida, and we still have power. We still have internet, which is great. We didn't know what was going to happen with that. The hurricane is pretty much past us. It's hitting the coast around the Tallahassee area right now, and we're getting a little bit of the tail end of it, but it pretty much just went right by us. We had some, probably 40, 50 mile an hour wind gusts, but nothing insane. So luckily for that, it was interesting to watch the town turn into a ghost town. People running, gasoline stations were running out of gasoline and stuff. And like we talked about yesterday, that's why it's important to have be prepared for different situations, because it in a split second, you could literally go from like no food on the shelves to no gas at the gas stations. Good morning, Dr. Stillman. I was
Good
just
morning,
telling
everyone.
them I've gotten through the hurricane. It's interesting to see the headlines this morning. Of course, Florida braces for devastation, and the fear. Fear is always such a huge component of modern media complex. Got to get that emotional response to get those clicks right.
Did I
And
tell
we
you, though, that I
yeah.
just saw that, like, Chris Wallace's CNN show is getting less viewers than some amateur YouTubers?
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it at
So,
all.
fortunately, people are buying into this nonsense less and less.
It's correct. Well, and even with titles, like when we do our titles for we do YouTube shorts and stuff, like I'm always careful. Like you want to do stuff that gets people's attention, but you don't want it to be like stupidly outrageous where anyone with a rational brain looks at it and goes, "Oh, this is a really dumb title."
Yeah, I know.
It's kind of a weird. It's kind of a
Try to
weird.
be responsible.
Correct. We try our best to be responsible. We're talking about, well, first of all, let's talk about, we did a Q&A last night. We answered questions about our thyroid course.
Thyroid program.
Yeah, you can find that. We still have the program is still open. You can find a link to that in the description. And if you want to work with us and the thyroid course is a little out of your budget, of course, there's always the fundamentals of wellness with coaching. That's our, we have Dr. Stillman's Substack, which is where you can enter in for $20 a month. And then we have our fundamentals of wellness course with coaching. And then we have our courses up from there because we want to have different price points for people, right? So nutrition myths debunked. I think the number one is most people just don't realize how much light affects their biology and their blood sugar. Like that, I can count on one hand the number of meals I've had in the last year under artificial light, because I've tested myself. I can tell that story if you want me to, but I've noticed the difference it makes in blood sugar and just how the body processes things. On the extreme side of that, I think out of that space came the statement, I won't exactly quote it, but because there's profanity. And I know you want me to keep the profanity down. I understand. It's a family show.
Profanity to 0.
But if you get sun, you can eat whatever the hell you want, which I think is a statement that was made. I'd love to talk to this gentleman about that.
To be provocative.
To basically compensate for the fact that the modern human just doesn't even think about how light affects their biology, right? So I can see why that statement was made, but there are people that literally believe that. Like, if I get enough sun, I can eat whatever the hell I want. And that we don't see that, even with me, like I can optimize my performance and how I feel based on my diet. I get probably more sun than I'd say the majority of people in the Western world. Look at my skin. So, that's something I think that's probably the biggest thing that most people it's not even on their radar.
No, I absolutely agree. And this is the big thing about, nutrition right now, particularly, is that certainly over the last, I would say, couple of decades, there's been a growing awareness that our modern indoor lifestyles with circadian disruptions are having a significant impact on our metabolism. What's really sad about this is that this is not new information. It is very old information. It was put out by guys like Fritz Hallwich and his collaborators in the German literature in the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. But everything, there's nothing new under the sun. Everything old is new again. The world went crazy for biochemistry because you can patent molecules. You can patent molecules. And that means you can make a fortune making those molecules and selling them to the public. And so, I just, it's tough. Sometimes watching modern society, it's like watching a long, slow train wreck. The people on the train are saying, we all want to get off. We're all scared and this is scary. We don't want to do this anymore. And we're out here like, hey, you need to go outside. And they're like, but it's hot.
Well, the thing is 90% of the people on the train aren't even aware. Like they're just, okay. I'll do whatever you say. Okay. That makes total sense to me. I'll wear a diaper on my face. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll eat. I'm a diabetic. You shouldn't mock
people, Jim. It's rude. The Bible tells us not to.
You go to the American Dietetic Association, or the Canadian one anyways, because I know my dad is a diabetic. I was trying to give him advice, and they were telling him to eat 4 to 6 servings of bread and grains a day. As a type 2 diabetic. That's the part that makes it
hard not to mock, is that it's so dumb, And so let's talk about what nutrition myths are we going to debunk today, Jim? I think we should start with the one that unfortunately.
Well, I think this thing that there's only one way to eat, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I used to be like, I used to kind of fall into that, right?
I think we all have at some point.
Yeah, and then I started to look at different cultures around the world and seasonally. Like if you look at like the United States is one of the few. If you go to Italy, like tomatoes have a season, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't fly tomatoes in from all over the world. Like our modern world has created this environment where we've got pineapples available in, Edmonton, Alberta in January. Right.
Right.
So nature kind of has this way of moving things in and out of the diet. And Paul Chek was really the first one that really got me thinking about this about probably, I don't know, maybe it's the mid to late 2000s. He was like, your body needs like, he's big into the Eastern type thing. And he's like, your body needs different things at different times. And he's like, if I'm lifting a lot of weights, I eat more protein. If I'm not lifting as much weights, I eat less protein, and I change my diet. And then my former roommate, Alan Kress, I remember a couple years ago, it was a while ago. He's like, I take these guys that have been bodybuilders who've been cramming all these calories down their gullet for so long, and I change their diet, I simplify it, we maybe go to more of a plant-based diet for a little while, and we introduce some fasting to give their digestive system a break, right? Because they've been basically just, so there's a place, but everybody's got their camps, right? Like only vegetables, only meat, and I think the big game changer for me in my thought process was Dr. Terry Wahls talking about, because everybody's always like, there's toxins in the plants and all that, but looking at it as a hermetic stressor to me made a lot more sense to me, right? And even the Inuit, who 90% of their diet is animal product, they even have mosses, and they have berries and things like that in their diet. So there really isn't true. And even if you look at the vegetarian/vegan people, most of those cultures have some sort of animal product in there. They've got dairy, or they've got fermented this or that. There's something in there that's a little bit animal based, a little bit of seafood. So you don't see these extremes quite as much, obviously, unless the environment dictates that, right? But they're just people get fixed on like there's only one, like just like lifting, like you can only train west side barbell, or you need to do one set to failure on everything. Mike Menser, that's the only way to train. Well, there's elements of this we can incorporate into different protocols and different where people are and their lifestyle and all these things. But people just love that, like, this is the only way,
Sure. Yeah.
It's convenient and easy.
But it's so fun to tailor diets to people based on their context.
Yeah. I mean, there's principles.
Because that's what we see in getting people the best results, right?
Sure.
And so I love doing that with labs. With labs.
We want
to HRV data, with all that stuff.
Yeah. And we want to give people something they're actually going to do, right?
Right. It's got to be a sustainable diet that they can actually eat for a long period of time.
Well, in like training, most people don't understand that your body is going to adapt and it's going to do certain things and adjust, and what you're doing right now might not work forever. The principles of it probably will, but the actual application of it might not. It might have to be tweaked slightly.
Right. That's a fact. Yeah. Yeah.
What's your biggest pet peeve when it comes to, I know demonizing foods is one of your biggies.
Yes.
But I mean, to be fair, there are foods that are harder on digestive. Like, we'll tell people to like simplify for a while.
But it just all depends on who and what and how much. The funny story,
Right.
funny conversation we had the other day is I walk into the kitchen and Jim is like, "Did you know that people can eat so much broccoli that it screws up their thyroid?" And I say, "That's not true. That's not possible." And he says, "Look, go argue with Stan Efferding over it. He's taking care of or worked with, what was it, figure girls,
Oh
figure
yeah,
competitors,
bodybuilders. The people to look at for this kind of information are the people that are pushing the edges of extreme performance.
That's where you learn a lot. You learn a lot from people at the extremes.
Mm-hmm.
And so, then I thought about it. I thought, that makes a lot of sense. They eat so much of it that it can create a problem. And there's a lot of different mechanisms behind that, like why foods create problems for people. I think that's one of the reasons why people get so confused
Right.
about what they should eat and why, because they hear, well, Aunt Betty, she got terribly sick from eating spinach, so now none of us should eat spinach. Well,
Right.
What's different about Aunt Betty, right? But people's thinking tends to stop there. So anyway, yeah, I mean, that unique example, I've never seen anyone in my practice wind up with problems with their thyroid from eating broccoli. I doubt I ever will, because none of my patients are eating too much broccoli because they're not figure competitors. So James asks, do eggs cause heart disease or no? And the answer is not really, no. But I will tell you that I think that eggs can be a big part of the problem in our modern, with people's, or can contribute to people's health problems, is what I would say, depending upon the source and depending upon how much you're eating or not.
A lot
Because
of people will
people who
develop
are
an
very
allergy.
sensitive to egg protein, and they have to stop eating it because it's ruining their digestion. It's contributing to things like IBS. And, if that's causing then inflammatory processes to build up in the body or occur in the body, it can create an oxidative stress that could then fuel heart disease. So you have to stop thinking about things in terms of this causes that, and, this makes this happen. It's a little bit like saying, guns kill people, right? Like people who die from gun violence, there's a lot more factors there.
Well, gun just doesn't jump up off the table and shoot you either. And you got to understand, a lot of these foods, you get into this with like meat too, with uric acid and gout and things like that. What people don't understand is somebody's having it. But I will tell you this: eggs are not the demonized food. Like, fat is not going to kill you like they say it's going to, right?
Right, exactly.
The overall issue with something like that is the whole system is broken, and most of the time it's because it's not enough sleep, too much refined food, too much alcohol. And then, the eggs just kind of end up, you have a reaction to the eggs because the whole system is busted, right? And generally speaking, when you develop these like food allergies, generally it's because the whole system is busted. The gut is absolutely messed up.
Yeah.
And that's what's actually causing the issue. So if you simplify things, you get people healthier, all of a sudden, all these issues go away. And Paul Chek was really the first one that talked about this, is like rotating your proteins, rotating your protein powders, rotating the kind of meats you eat, eat elk, eat, bison, eat, different turkey.
When did you start talking about that?
Oh, years ago. Paul's been talking about this for, he has his, he's got his school, like the doctor diet and the doctor, Dr. Quiet and all these different, he's been talking about this for ages. And, he talks about the importance of like rotating your diet according to your activities, like with me, like on the days I don't eat as much food, I don't train as hard, so it's common sense, but we've seemed to lost that in our in our modern world. But a lot of people get fixated on a food. Well, this food is causing this. Well, it might be contributing to that, but the overall health of the organism, are you getting enough sun? Is your body healthy? When your body's in a good place, it's going to be able to handle a lot of these, like I talk about all the time, metabolic flexibility. I should be able to go for a day without eating and not go insane. And I should be able to sit down and eat a chocolate cake without going into like a hypoglycemic shock, right? Or a dietetic coma. My body should be able to handle both of those.
Diabetic.
Thank you.
It's all right.
But I mean, I should be able to handle both of those extremes, just like I should be able to do a very intense 4-minute HIIT workout and it not kill me. And I should be able to go for an hour, 2-hour walk without cramping and my low back hurting and all that stuff. You should be able to do both ends of the spectrum.
Right. I think, for me, most of the myths that I see out there, they come down to pretty much one simple fallacy, which is that, there are foods that have been eaten for time immemorial that are just bad and shouldn't be eaten. But the other side of that is that any food can be made unhealthy when you process it, prepare it, or consume it in a certain way or in excess, right? And that's where people would just get confused, like with this question about eggs, right? Are they good or are they bad? Do they cause heart disease or not? Well, if you're eating eggs in, I don't know, gelato every night and you're crushing 3 or 4, pounds of gelato, that's not good for you. But you're wrong to blame the eggs, right? And so you have to focus on eating real whole foods, focusing on single ingredient meals, often to exclusively when you're really sick, trying to get well, and always trying to figure out, what am I eating that could still be making me sick through some kind of process, whether I can't digest it or I'm just eating too much of it or I'm having an immunological reaction to it. That's one reason why we see so many people improving their health when they add what Jim likes to call digestive support, which I think I've never heard it called that other than by you. And I just think of it as enzymes and betaine HCl and bile acids and bitters and herbs, like things like that, because they help stimulate digestion. And
well, and chewing your food, I think a lot of people miss that.
Oh man, people just rocket through their day and they just bolt their food down as fast as they can.
And I fall into that category too. That from bodybuilding or powerlifting, whatever I did.
Yeah.
You're trying to get down as much food as you possibly can, right? You just and back to Paul Chek. You want to drink your food, eat your water. So our modern world, we're such in a rush, we don't sit down and relax and actually sit. And I think that's one of the things that's the big problem is, people used to sit down and actually take their time and eat. Now it's they order it on the go or, food on the fly and they're hammering it down and then they're just going right back to work,
Right.
And that's where that 10-minute walk after the meal really helps too, because it helps you relax, helps improve your digestion, controls blood sugar, so just taking these small little things and doing them consistently so you have an overall healthy organism that can handle all these different stressors.
Yes.
And you look at traditional cultures, they take these foods that might not be the top of the choice, but that's what's in their environment. That's what, like Latinos with beans and, even Native Americans eat beans and corn, but they prepared it in a certain way where they handled it. They figured out over time, like, this is the way we have to, prepare this in order for our digestion to handle it. Right.
Right.
And we've gotten away from a lot of that in our modern world. And a lot of the ways we prepare foods or refine foods actually end up being detrimental.
Not to mention all the stuff that gets added during that process that's really toxic.
Yeah, if it comes in a box or a wrapper, just don't even look at it.
I mean, we eat things out of boxes and wrappers.
We do, but I'd say it's what is about 7% of the diet, maybe.
Right. But the other piece of that is like the meal prep service you use has got very clean ingredients.
Right. Well, we're talking at the store, like the things that are in the inside.
But you said wrapper, and there's a wrapper on the meal prep service.
Yeah, I get it. Good. Thank you for putting context in there, Doctor.
I want people to know, it's like,
yeah. So they're out in the yard eating the grass because it's not in a wrapper. We gotta be careful what we say. You're right. That's a good point.
On that note, I think that's enough for today, Jim.
Yeah, that was a good one. It was good. So
take care, everyone. Sign up for our thyroid course. Have a great day. Don't forget to get outside unless you're in the path of the hurricane. And
yeah,
then
unless the
maybe
winds are
stay
like
inside.
80 miles an hour plus, don't go outside.